Hello and welcome to Steve's Heritage Kitchen. I decided to do a short video for you this morning. I've had a lot of people tell me how good my cabbage slaw is, just regular coleslaw, and I always tell them how easy it is. So I thought I would go ahead and show you how easy it is. So if you're in a pinch and you're having some people over and you need some slaw for seafood or barbecue, it's really easy to do. This is half a head of cabbage. So you need to, I cut them in fourths, and that makes it easy to take out the core. So you just slice along here to remove the core. And then the part that's a little bit time consuming is shaving the lettuce, cabbage. And I find that the thinner, the finer the shred, the more flavor, the more cabbage flavor the slaw will have. It doesn't matter all that much. If you let it sit longer, it'll get the flavor. So a good sharp knife, a good grip on your cabbage, and then you just basically start slicing. Like I said, the thinner the better, and you can see this is pretty thin that I'm doing, but you know what cabbage slaw looks like to yourself, so you can pretty much slice it any thickness you want. A good sharp knife is a good idea. It will allow you to slice much quicker and have you way more control over the size of the slaw. Now, having said that, I started out with a knife like this, a serrated, cheapy knife. If you do it right, they work pretty good. You could just, it grabs a hold of the cabbage pretty easily, and you do have some control. So if you have one of these old things sitting around your kitchen, it's really not hard at all to get yourself. You can also do this in your food processor. It will do it thicker, but again, the flavor will come as the cabbage slaw sits. The most important thing is to cut it up. Oh, and another good thing about cabbage is that you can get a head of cabbage and put it in your refrigerator for a long time, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And if you happen to cut it in half, and this may be a little bit weird sounding, but it's true. If you get your cabbage out and you find that there's a little discoloration, a little darkness, which is a little bit of mold, there's still nothing wrong with the cabbage. If you slice that off, you can use the rest of it. It's just as nice as it. Cabbage is one of those things that they used to store down in the root cellar for long periods of time. They would get kind of nasty on the outside. When you take off the outside leaves, you get a nice, good, healthy cabbage on the inside. So, and you just put the cabbage in your bowl and just keep slicing, or use your food processor until you get it all down to the size you want and all sliced. And again, you can do it with that. You can do it with this one. In some ways, a serrated knife works really well. And again, that's a little bit thick for me, but it's cabbage slaw, so there's no rhyme or reason to it. So, that's a little bit thick. And then you have to make sure that you're actually cutting all the way to your cutting board. All right, I'm going to go ahead and slice this all up. You don't need to watch this. And if you're using a food processor, you really don't need to watch this. I'll be back in a minute. I had this little clicker, doesn't work. So. Okay, I'm back. Got the cabbage all cut up. That's about what we got out of that smaller half head of cabbage. And so then what you're going to need is the ingredients to make the slaw, and this is all you need to make slaw taste decent. Salt, and for this amount of cabbage, you can salt it. I usually just salt it, mix it in, taste it to see if it's salty enough. I'm going to go with a half a teaspoon of salt, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to take a half teaspoon of salt and just sprinkle it all over the top of the cabbage. And then I'm going to put a little pepper on here. Okay. And then from there, you got to mix it up, get the salt. I'll put a little more salt. I think it's a little more salt. Like I said, sometimes I just taste it. Okay. So it's more like a teaspoon of salt. And then, the other thing you need is some onion. I'll just slice up some onion here. You don't need a huge amount, but, and you could use green onions. Alright. Now I'm going to give these a little shot. I'll cut them nice and thin so they'll mix in well. We're going to just put them in here. I'm going to say about a quarter of an onion maybe for that amount of cabbage. And then, just for a little color, let's put some carrot. See here. Carrot in here. You don't need a lot. Okay. And mix that in. See what we got. No, we need a carrot. Okay. Alright, so we got the onion and the carrot. I'm going to grab a fork. I think a fork is the easiest way to mix up slaw. So now we got that. And now pretty much the flavoring is, the sky's the limit. I mean, a little Dijon mustard is good. Horseradish is good in here. Celery seed or celery salt, but then you have to realize that you already put some salt in. But the big deal is the vinegar, the salt, and the sugar and the mayonnaise. That's what's going to make your slaw taste good. So we're going to, with this amount of mayonnaise, this amount of cabbage, I'm going to put in a quarter of a, and if you stick to 1-to-1 on the sugar and the vinegar, you'll be really close. So I'm going to put in a quarter of a cup of sugar. And I'm going to put in a quarter of a cup of vinegar. Mix that up. And there's all different kinds of concentrations of salt and vinegar, and whether it's sweeter or it's more sour. The best way is just to taste it. Definitely in the realm. Now I'm going to put a little bit just for myself. I'm going to put a little Dijon in here because that gives it a nice flavor. You don't need much. Mix that all up. If you wanted, if you were making slaw for your barbecue, you could put a little bit of chili powder in here. or a little bit of chipotle from chipotle pepper in adobo. A little bit of the adobo sauce in here gives it a smoky flavor. Really makes it go good with barbecue. Basically, the sky's the limit. The thing you have to keep in mind is salt, onion, vinegar, and sugar, and mayonnaise. If you get those correct, your slaw will taste good. So we're gonna now, we're at here. Give us one more taste. A little bit of the Dijon, very good. Now, this is also preference. However much mayonnaise you want in here. Not a big deal. You could probably even leave mayonnaise out. You can put part mayonnaise and part sour cream, part yogurt. You can probably go without mayonnaise and put a little olive oil in, or some other kind of oil. I have a recipe for slaw that uses bacon grease and no mayonnaise, which is it's very good. And put the bacon in too. I want a little bit more mayonnaise. Now, the longer this sits, the more flavor it'll have. And there it is. There's your slaw, and that's all there is to it. Let's see. Get yourself a little ramekin to go alongside of whatever you're serving. And there you have it. Coleslaw for any occasion. Keep in mind, vinegar and sugar half and half. So depending on how, it'll still taste good. You might have more than you need. But depending on how, for the small half a cabbage like this, a quarter of a cup of sugar and a quarter of a cup of vinegar, perfect. If you get the salt right. And again, put some salt on, taste it. If it tastes good to you, it is good. And the end result is always good. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you next time.